So as a dungeon master, how do you utilize hidden enemies or a second wave in an encounter? We're doing this D&D thing, exploring, leveling up, questing, but the moment you hear roll for initiative, you are ready to go. So within that framework, I'm trying to do two things in every single encounter. First, I'm trying to play tactically. It's probably the Wargamer in me. I'm trying to put myself, we talk about role-playing, I try to put myself into the encounter itself. What does that encounter know? What does it think about? The encounter itself, the intelligence, the wisdom, the stats, what knowledge does it have as a group or an individual? And that's how I try to fight the players. Second to that, I ask myself, how can I use this to build the narrative, advance the story, maybe give out some clues as to what's going on? So almost like role play, ROLL, while we're rolling to hit and for damage, there's also some role play, ROLE, where I'm trying to advance those ideas. And utilizing a second wave is a great way to kind of really push up the tactica. A lot of players, what I want to wake up my players, especially if we're playing D&D Modern, is this idea of the challenge rating. Challenge rating, simplified, is assuming the players roll average or a little bit less than average to hit and other things, advantage, disadvantage, they'll be fine. It's just a stat block. They'll chew through it. Even if we're playing with challenge rating, I want them to feel the challenge. I want them to worry about things. I want them to play smart and tactical. I want to reward them for that. So a second wave is a great example. We're heading towards the Keep on the Borderlands. No spoilers for this if you're playing through the module. This is the updated module for D&D Current. Making our way to the Keep on the Borderlands. And the setup intro traveling to the Borderlands is to give a little bit of background, let the players introduce themselves and get an understanding of the land and pick up some rumors. So we know it's not going to be just like a massive, sudden, like giants are attacking and dragons are flying down from the sky. But we're pretty sure, rumors, there's bandits in the area. We're going to have an encounter. So we're part of a caravan, making our way through the valley, making our way towards the keep. It's a perfect ambush point. Even if you haven't been playing D&D long enough, putting yourself in the character, you know, hey, this is where something is going to happen. You're waiting. Roll for initiative. And when it was roll for initiative and some bandits were attacking the caravan, looking at the terrain, there were plenty of other places to hide, not only in close combat support, but missile support. So we're like, they're also going to hit us from the other side because that just makes sense, but also a little ways down the road, maybe with some ranged attacks or spell attacks. So this way we can't escape, right? Try to hit us on all three sides. And that's what they did. We were ready for it. But we had to tactically wait on our end for that ambush, for that trap to really, really spring. It created a lot more tension. We've got the mage hiding out in the cart. I was playing a druid, attacking with some ranged weapons, and even though I had a good idea of what was going to happen, visually I see the tokens of the bandits, but there could be some other ones hidden. I know there are, and there was. So how I utilize that is, first question is, do we allow perception checks or spot checks to possibly spot a second wave or an ambush? I would. I do. If you're traveling along and you're making some checks, difficulty is going to depend on the weather, the time of day, your perception, the conditions, how well the bandits or the ambushers or the attackers or the goblins or whatever, how well they're hidden. It's going to be a sliding scale DC. It might be average. It might be much higher depending on the skill of the raiders or the skill of the encounter. But I would allow that. And then in combat, as things are revealed, not everyone has to ambush at once. So if we're fighting on this primary front on our right and on our left, I put down 2 more bandit tokens. Is that really all of them? There might be some other bandits waiting to hide. So the fighter and the barbarian are going to run off, and then they suddenly see 3 or 4 more. And now they're outnumbered. The second thing that I like to incorporate to build that tactica, this is a living battlefield or living encounter. Things are going on. I mean, think about casting spells. Here's something that we could never figure out. Lightning bolt makes a noise. Fireball makes a noise. Does magic missile make a noise? Do magic missiles make noise? I'm not talking about the actual casting of the spell, but as the missiles fly through the air. Acid arrow, I could see being like the acid is magically charged. Old school color spray and chromatic orb, do they make sounds? But does magic missile make sounds? The sounds of combat. The sounds of combat. That's going to attract other opportunities, especially if we're talking in a dungeon setting, where the players have to think, if we're yelling and screaming and the orcs are yelling and screaming and we're casting lightning bolt and this is AD&D, so it's bouncing off walls like crazy, blasting stuff. Who else is hearing this and either getting ready and fortifying in other rooms, picking up their weapons, running down the hallway, or in the case of maybe like an ogre or a bigger, more powerful semi-boss monster for the level, are they leaving the rooms, the other dungeon rooms, and making their way? Is it changing the landscape of the dungeon? I try to do that a lot, especially with dungeon encounters, because I feel like there's this feeling, maybe it comes from scripted video games and RPGs, where something's hanging out in a room and it's not moving. It's literally just standing there waiting to activate. So when you open the door and there's line of sight, it activates with some dialogue or roll for initiative or attack. There's stuff going on in the dungeon, and they're all doing things, whatever they got to do, even if it's like a mindless golem. It's active. It's walking around. It's has its attention. It's waiting for its commands. So when there's an encounter, the sounds, the battlefield effects, the what's going on, that can potentially affect the role-playing, ROLE, in the rest of the dungeon and bring in some other monsters. So it is something in the D&D DM toolkit, ambushes, second round attackers, hidden enemies, suddenly revealing stuff, but also taking that level up a little higher, thinking, how does the effects of the combat, of the battle, affect the other areas and maybe bring other monsters or drive away other monsters? How does that work? How do we utilize that to build the narrative?